but today we are going to meet some Atlantic spotted dolphins. I'm Kelmalillo Sweeting, and I manage the dolphin communication projects research in a place called Bimini in the Bahamas, and we're going to talk about that place in a few minutes. Dolphin communication project is a lot to say over and over again, so we refer to ourselves as DCP. And monitoring that chat is our director, Kathleen Dudzinski. So you can direct your questions either to everyone on the drop-down menu, or you can send them directly to Dr. Kathleen. And normally, or a lot of the time, we wait until the end of the talk to do question and answer, but this talk is really casual and fun, so go ahead and submit those questions along the way, and Dr. Kathleen will interrupt me and we will address them as best we can. So as you might guess, the dolphin there on screen is a dolphin we call Paul, and in a few minutes we're gonna learn more about Paul. So here we have Speedy saying hello as well, and Paul and Speedy and all the dolphins we're going to talk about today are Atlantic spotted dolphins. So whether you want to put your answer in the chat or just talk to whoever's in the room with you, where do you think Atlantic spotted dolphins live? Guesses? The Arctic Ocean? The Mediterranean Sea? The Atlantic Ocean, of course. And guess what they look like? They have spots. So this is a common name that actually makes sense. But there are a lot of common names that don't make sense. And of course, there are all different languages around the world. So we also have scientific names for species, which are Latin. So the Latin or scientific name for the Atlantic spotted dolphin is Stenella frontalis, and that's who we're going to be talking about mostly today. Stenella, that first part, is the genus. They are circled in red, and the genus is always going to start with a capital letter. The second word, in this case frontalis, is the species, and that's going to start with a lowercase letter. So we also, when we're doing our research and we're taking our notes on the boat, sometimes we call these dolphins SF. S for Stenella and frontalis. There are 4 other species in the genus Stenella, one of which is the pantropical spotted dolphin. And pantropical spotted dolphins are in the Atlantic and the Pacific, and while they can overlap in the Atlantic Ocean with the Atlantic spotted dolphins, we don't see pantropical spotted dolphins at our field site in Bimini. This photograph here is a presumed pantropical spotted dolphin calf, and in 18 years that I've been studying these dolphins, I've only seen this species once, but I'm always on the lookout. So let's talk a little bit about where we study these dolphins first. Here you can see a kind of zoomed in map. This is the southern part of the state of Florida in the United States. Here are the Florida Keys, here's Miami, and all of this kind of purplish dark blue water is very, very deep water. So this is the deep Gulf Stream or the Florida Straits. It flows from the south to the north. And once you get over here, all of these islands, all of this ocean is the country of the Bahamas. The Bahamas is an independent country, and they don't have states, but each of their different islands has a different name. And we study the dolphins off an island called Bimini. And Bimini is very little, and it's circled here in orange. And as you can see, it sits right on the edge of this shallow water. It's the Great Bahama Bank, and it's very close to this deep Gulf Stream water. So we think that the Atlantic spotted dolphins like to do most of their business in the shallow water here, and then zip over to the deep water to feed and come right back to do everything else. But the pantropical spotted dolphins don't seem to like this habitat. they seem to prefer to be in the deep water. So boaters who come from Miami to Bimini, if they see dolphins in this deep water, it's most often the pantropical spotted dolphins. So today we are going to talk not just about spotted dolphins in general and what do most spotted dolphins do, but we're going to talk about actual individual dolphins that we've been studying in this area of Bimini. And we're not going to talk about all 20 or so that we have up on our website. So if at the end, tomorrow, next week, you want to learn more, you can head to our website, and under the Ways to Help tab, you'll see Adopt a Dolphin. And there, each dolphin has its own little tile here, and you can click on the dolphins and learn more about them. You can also head straight to adoptawilddolphin.com, and that will bring you to this page to learn more about these fun dolphins. So let's start with a little family tree, if you will, at least the mother's side of it. It's very difficult for us to confirm who the father of the dolphins are, but the mother-calf relationship is very strong. Moms and calves have a super tight relationship. They spend almost all of their time together when the calf is young. So today we're going to talk about a mom named Juliette and one of her calves, older calves, who's called Inka. We'll talk about Leslie, the mom, and her offspring, Paul. And then we'll talk about Tina and her offspring, Kiwi. So here is Juliette. She is ID number 012 in our photo ID catalog. She's probably about 25 years old. She was already a young juvenile when we began our research in 2001, so we have to just estimate her age. She is the mom of Inka, as well as some other calves, and she's among the oldest dolphins in the group that we study. So she's one of the oldest females that we get a chance to go and look at. And then this is her calf, Inka, who is ID number 093. But let's go back to Juliette and see what our question is. Oh, you're muted, Dr. Kathleen.
Sorry about that. I hit the video and not the audio. The question actually could be on either slide, and it relates to how do you know their names? Who gives them their names versus, and how does that match up with that number?
Excellent question. And I'm going to answer half of it, and then I'm going to see if our listeners want to simmer on a question of their own, if you will. So when we're taking notes, we give each dolphin a number in our catalog. So as soon as we get a good view of their right side, their left side, maybe most of their fins, we know that we've documented enough of their body that we're going to be able to recognize them if we see them the next day, the next month, the next year. And we put a number on that dolphin and they get added to our catalog. But we also want people to get excited about dolphins. So they also get names, some of them. And some of them got their names from the boat crew that we were originally working with back in 2001, 2002. And then some of them, like Inka, get her name from DCP supporters. So once or twice a year, depending if pandemics are interrupting our work or not, we offer the opportunity for a supporter to make a big donation and they get to name a dolphin. And then that dolphin becomes a part of our Adopt a Wild Dolphin program. And all of our other supporters can adopt that dolphin that they've named. So what I think the folks listening should think about, and then we'll circle back to it, is if you were starting a dolphin research project, or maybe you were going to study lions, or you were going to study giraffes, and part of your research you were planning it all out, and you know that you want to be able to tell the animals apart. What does this lion do compared to this lion? Would you give your study animals numbers? or would you give your study animals names? So we'll come back to that after we talk about another dolphin or two and see what our listeners think.
And I'll share what I've done with my studies.
Excellent. So Inka is ID number 093, and she's about 11 years old. We know a little bit closer when she was born, and she is the daughter of Juliette. So here she is when she was a calf, and here she is swimming nice and close to mom there, Juliette. We recognized her even before she got her first spots because she has damage to her right pectoral fin. So their fin on the back of their body is the dorsal fin, and the fins on the sides of their bodies are their pectoral fin. So she had a pretty serious injury here, but it healed very well. She's doing just fine, but it meant that we could tell her apart from all of the other little calves that were swimming around. And now that she's 11-ish, next summer 12-ish, we are on the lookout for her having her first calf, which will be very exciting to be able to have a mother, a daughter, and then a grand calf, I suppose. So another mom in our group is Leslie. She's ID number 080 or ID number 80. She's probably a little less than 20 years old, and we have observed her since she was a young juvenile, much like Juliette. And she is the mom of Paul, though in this picture here, I'm showing you a calf she had after Paul. And she doesn't have any big scars on her, which is also a bit like Juliette. So we have to really be able to see her spot pattern in order to know that it's her. So for example, my eye catches these two white spots over here. And if I see that part of her body, and then there's a black spot that's kind of practically touching that white spot, and then I know it's her, because no other Atlantic spotted dolphin is going to have those three exact spots in that exact spot. Spots in spots. What spot is the spot in? If I see the back of Leslie, this section of her body is called the peduncle. I might look for these two dark spots and then this kind of larger cluster of white spots there. And then I'll know, oh, Leslie's here. Excellent. Her calf, Paul, is ID number 99, and he's 8 or 9 years old. He's Leslie's son, and you can see he has a big injury to his peduncle. So he has these two very distinct, pretty deep notches. We don't know how he got them, but we do know that they healed very well. He was a calf when he got them. Here he's an older juvenile. He's independent from his mom at this point. He does his own thing, like playing with this big patch of sargassum here, which is a type of seaweed that's very common in Bimini. And though he's independent from his mom, Leslie has since had another calf, they're one of the few mother offspring pairs that we still see in the same group, even now that Paul is older. So that's super cool to know about. And we're going to not only, now that we know that they are in the same group, we're going to start asking questions about, well, what are they doing together when they're in that same group? Are they kind of at the same party, but they're not really interacting? Or do they actually interact with each other still? And we'll do one more mother calf pair, and then I will see what you all are thinking about your research projects. Tina is ID number 014. So she was the 14th dolphin that we added to our catalog. She's about 20 years old, which I feel like a mom who can't believe how big her kids are getting, because I don't think Tina can possibly be 20 already, because that makes me really old. But she is indeed probably around 20 years old. Here's a picture of her when she was about 4 years old. So you can see almost no spots. She's starting to get spots on her peduncle back here. Now she's the mom of Kiwi. And when she was younger, she used to come really close to our cameras. She was one of the few dolphins where I would actually interrupt my data collection and swim away from her because I didn't want her getting that acclimated to me, that used to our camera. We study these wild dolphins off Bimini. We want them to stay wild. We don't want our research to change their behavior. And here she is at about 18 years old. So you can see how different they look as they age. A youngster, just that two-tone gray coloration. And then by the time they're older, they are just covered in spots, and she will continue to get more and more spots, which is why it's so important for us to get out there year after year to collect new photos, new video of these dolphins, because if we miss, say we don't see a dolphin for 4 or 5 years, they have so many new spots on top of and surrounding their old spots that it's very difficult to match up their markings. And then here's Kiwi, one of our newest additions. He's number 121. He's about 3 years old now. So next summer, he may or may not be with mom. By next summer, he might be independent, doing his own thing. She might show up with a new calf, Tina, or they might spend one more summer together. So we'll have to wait and see. And he doesn't have any spots yet, but we can recognize him because he has a notch in his dorsal fin. So he's obviously kind of swimming upside down in this picture, but this is the back of his body and his dorsal fin. And he had an injury there, and he's since gotten a bit more damage to it. But it's a fun little hook. He recovered fine. He does just fine, and it makes him very easy to recognize from the boat. We don't even have to get underwater, and we can say, oh, there's Kiwi's dorsal fin. Kiwi's here today. So anyone who wants to, again, talk amongst yourselves, or feel free to put your thoughts into the chat. If you were studying any species, but a species where you could tell individuals apart, so dogs, lions, giraffes, manta rays, dolphins, would you give your study group names or numbers? And we can call on Dr. Kathleen to fill us in on what she chose, and then I can tell you a little bit more about why we do both in Bimini.
Well, when I started studying dolphins almost 30 years ago now, I had a really tough time remembering names, but I'm really good at remembering numbers. And I can remember numbers from high school. I can remember the phone number that I grew up with. I can, all those kinds of things. So for me, it's always been easier to remember numbers. And so that's when I started my studies of the dolphins in the northern part of Bahamas. I assigned numbers because I couldn't remember names. In fact, when I was studying the dolphins in Japan, I remembered the numbers of the dolphins there, and I was collaborating with the Mikura Island Research Group, and they had given names and numbers. And my collaborator, Kogi, when we were on the water, he'd be yelling out names, I'd be yelling out numbers, and it wasn't until we were back on land that we realized we were talking about the same dolphins.
Same dolphins. That happens with our summer interns every year. Mm-hmm. They learn the names first, and then they're writing it on the data sheet. But some of the dolphins, it's much easier to write, I won't go all the way back, but a number than to spell out Juliette. You'll see in a moment, we have a dolphin named Prince William. It's much easier to write 64 than to spell out Prince William on a rocking boat and you're dripping wet and those things. Mm-hmm. So some of it gives us information as well. So I had mentioned to you that Tina was the 14th dolphin that we added to our catalog. Well, Kiwi was the 121st dolphin we added to the catalog. So the numbers have a little bit of built-in information in them to know not necessarily how old the dolphin is, because maybe number 120 is already an adult, but at least how long we've been studying them. Was it a more recent dolphin we saw for the first time, or a dolphin we saw way back in 2001?
So does that mean if Kiwi was the most recent dolphin you added to the catalog, that you've seen 121 dolphins?
Almost, because Sometimes scientists make mistakes. Ah,
Oh,
oh no. So we actually, I believe, have 118 dolphins in our catalog because we made 3 oopses. Um, by accident, 6 and 11 turned out to be the same dolphin. So we
oh.
don't use number 6, but we didn't want to give 6 to a different dolphin because then that would be like, oh, well, was that the first number 6 or the second number 6? Too much confusion. We just get rid of it.
Makes sense.
Number 51, I don't know. Like there's no notes. I think we just accidentally skipped number 51. So there are a couple of mistakes in the catalog, but it does tell us roughly how many different individuals we've seen. And you
Very
might
cool.
talk to researchers who study spinner dolphins in Hawaii and have hundreds of dolphins in their catalog. Bimini is a much smaller community, so we have about close to 120 spotted dolphins that we think were kind of born and raised around Bimini. And then we have about another 40 that moved to Bimini from the northern Bahamas. So we have whatever that, about 160 spotted dolphins that we study in the area.
Nice.
Excellent.
Very cool.
But it's not all moms and calves that we study. It's not as if this is just a nursery area. We see lots of boys as well. And we talk about a little bit of a boys club. And there are 4, and then there's a 5th and a 6th who often hang out together. So Splitjaw, Prince William, Tim, and Speedy. This is Splitjaw here. This is Prince William here. If you see one of these dolphins, then you're on high alert for the others. They're not together all of the time, so it's not a big alarm, it's not a big worry if the others aren't there, but they do spend a lot of time together. And like the reference to Leslie and Paul, we've got a sense of how often they're seen together in the same group. So now we're going to look at, well, how are they actually interacting when they're in this same group? Is it just that they're there, but they're on opposite sides of the room, if you will, opposite sides of the group, or are they actually interacting a lot as well? So lots of good questions up ahead for our research. And then as a reminder to you, if you like learning about these individual dolphins, you can head to adoptawilddolphin.com and you can learn more about some other dolphins, Milo, Little Jess, Speedy, Romeo, and you can read their little bios and see a picture. And then this goes back for a minute to why they also have names. And DCP researchers, we try and be very objective when we're studying the dolphins. And that doesn't mean we don't like the dolphins. I love dolphins. I think they're awesome. I'm very lucky that I get to study them as my job and share this information with the world. But we try and make sure that we're reducing our bias, that we're not seeing things that are kind of already in the back of our mind and then kind of stretching the truth about what the dolphins are doing. So one way that we do that is by using numbers. Yes, I may have a favorite number that may be 17. But probably I'm not going to have a big judgment about a number and expect a certain dolphin with that number to behave a certain way. But I might have a cousin Jess who's, 8 years old and she's really fun and she's really bubbly and she is super social and she loves to play games and then she's really active and so she's always wanting to do something and talk to new people and very outgoing and very friendly. Well, if I'm watching Dolphin Jess, the back of my mind might be my little cousin Jess. And I might accidentally see a little bit of my cousin Jess in Dolphin Jess. And we don't want to do that as scientists. So when we have our science hats on, we use the numbers. But then when we're talking to you guys, it's much easier to get people excited about dolphins and care about dolphins when they have a name, we're used to naming each other. We're used to naming our pets. We're used to naming our favorite stuffed animals. So we find that people get more excited about learning about the dolphins and feel a stronger connection to the dolphins if they have a name. You can get much more excited about Inka, perhaps, than about 93. So since DCP is not only about research, but we're also about education, and we want that research and education to work together so that we can conserve and work towards conservation of the dolphins and their entire ocean home. We like to have these fun names so people can get excited. Also on our website, you can find the recordings of these webinars. So just head to the education tab and you'll find the webinars there. There's also a schedule is up there, either the first or second entry, so you can see what's coming up the next 2 or 3 weeks. The webinars are also on YouTube if you prefer, and you can subscribe, of course, to our YouTube channel. Very clever, Dolphin Communication Project. And then we have other web-based content like our podcast, the Dolphin Pod. Our most recent episode is Dr. Kathleen and I talking with the hosts as a sort of a silly interview to celebrate DCP's 20th anniversary this year. And then our Dolphin Lessons, which is what this was, geared more towards younger kids, general people who just want to learn about dolphins. The next one is Tuesday, November 3rd, and we're going to talk about individual dolphins again, but focus a little bit more on their actual spots and how we find the patterns to recognize them. And in just 2 days, this coming Thursday is a deep dive. So that's going to be a bit more of a technical talk, but looking at shark-dolphin interactions in Australia with our friend Dr. Mike. And then also on our website, under the education tab, you'll find our kids science activities. And these are free to download PDFs. Some of them are actual activities that a grown-up can help a kid work through. And then some of them are word searches and word jumbles, crossword puzzles, coloring pages for kids and grown-ups alike. So we are, of course, a nonprofit, so there are all sorts of ways you can support us, like adopting a wild dolphin or becoming a member. We can be your Amazon Smile nonprofit. Even if we're not, everyone who shops on Amazon should start at Amazon Smile and select an organization to get a portion of your purchase. Doesn't cost you anything. And then there's our web address, our email address, social media, and this friendly shark has a question. So Dr. Kathleen, do we have any questions at the end here?
I think you covered everything really well. The one question that I might have is, do you see all of the numbered and named dolphins every summer? Not in a pandemic, but when you can get out there.
We do not see every dolphin in the catalog, and of those 100, and we'll call it 121 to Kiwi's number, some of those dolphins aren't alive anymore.
Right.
So it's not that number of dolphins is always right there. We also don't know how far they might venture in any given direction, but we usually see between 30 and 50 individuals each summer. And the more we get out, obviously, the more we have a chance to see. So we're hoping 2021 is going to be another busy boat season. My fingers are crossed.
Mine too. Mine too. So, well, thank you. That was really interesting.
Excellent. Thanks to everyone who's listening live, and thanks to everyone who's listening to the recording. And we hope to see you again one day.
Sounds good.